Today, I'm chatting with Kirti Shenoy, who's the co-founder and CEO at Zeal, which is a modern payroll platform built for staffing, contingent, and flexible workforces. Kirti, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks so much for having me, Joel. Excited to dive in.
Yeah, so I'm excited to have you on to talk about the shift that's happening across the workforce with reorgs, you have work redesign. A lot of departments are going lean right now. And really, that's impacting the downstream reliance on a more fluid and flexible workforce. And that's usually consisting of like contingent, temp labor, fractional workers. We're seeing a higher percentage of those in the marketplace as well. So Zeal was built with a focus on the fluid or flexible workforce. What trends are you seeing across the contingent labor market? And has there been an uptick in adoption of contingent labor in businesses and organizations?
Absolutely, Joel. Great question. So, contingent labor has always existed in the United States. We think of America's largest employers sometimes as those Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, but there's actually around 3 to 4,000 high volume employers known as staffing companies that basically recruit, find, deploy these workers to fill in these gaps across the labor shortages that we have. If you take the COVID crisis, for example, travel nurse staffing companies deployed tens of thousands of nurses all across the US to make sure that nurse care and healthcare was available to all Americans during the epidemic. So staffing has always existed and can really be a place or a function that helps save us in crises. But there's around 3 to 4,000 of these sort of contingent companies in the US across all different verticals, nurse staffing, light industrials, hospitality, and more that really fill in these gaps. In today's market, there's so much going on, and there are a bunch of trends happening right now that are leading a lot of businesses to rely more on staffing companies. First and foremost, a lot has changed in the political arena just recently. There are changes to immigration policies, and there are changes to tariffs. And what that means is there's really this surplus of demand of hourly and contingent labor in industries like light industrials and agriculture. So what we're going to start to see is a lot of companies as they bring more jobs back to the US as immigration policies get stricter, as requirements like verifying the employment eligibility of a worker come into play. We're going to have this huge gap in labor shortage, and staffing companies are really going to be the ones to recruit and deploy these workers. And then the next thing that we're starting to see in the market is just the rise of AI and software tools. This has been happening for the past decade, but AI has really accelerated the adoption for more companies to just be mindful about their hiring and to use and rely on these software tools and have a single person maybe take on multiple roles at the same time. And that's also translating into a lot of companies relying on fractional resourcing and fractional help, whether it's consultants or legal resources or specialty resources in some sort of capacity. They're working with these agencies to get a fractional resource that they can maybe rely on for 10 to 20 hours a week instead of hiring the full-time employee in-house.
You hit on a point that I think is really front and center right now. It's kind of a mismatched labor market right now, right? If you look at the open jobs and the demand, it's all on the frontline side. It's all with manufacturing and agriculture, healthcare, and hospitality and restaurants. That's where the demand is at. But you're seeing on the other side, the knowledge worker, the white collar workers are kind of going through a recession right now, right? The jobs are a lot harder. You have a lot more of the AI automation coming into play there, which is decreasing the need for full-time roles. Having the ability to have flexible and fluid workforce options for organizations is going to be more and more important in the coming years. Having that organizational agility to be able to shift and fill in labor gaps, I think is going to be really important going forward.
Totally. It is so much work to recruit and find and deploy and train the labor. And I think the companies that have been doing it really well are really going to hit the jackpot, I think, in this market because they're going to act faster and be able to deploy the resources faster than any other company on the market.
I've talked about this, previously, but this still holds true. Payroll, pay solutions in general are the area of HR tech that has seen the most dramatic and, in my opinion, the most impactful innovation over the past 5 years. Payroll was always this, back office administrative type function where the biggest innovation over 3 decades was a direct deposit. And it was pretty static, during the rest of that time. But, modern payroll systems have completely flipped this, and buyers and the market in general expect more in the areas of pay experience, compliance, and flexibility that we just talked about. So what are some examples of this paradigm shift in payroll, and how can it impact companies going forward?
When we think about payroll as a concept and we think about it in, maybe a small business concept, payroll is pretty simple. It's like you get paid weekly, you get your paycheck, you're a salaried worker, you don't really think much of it. And that level of payroll automation has been around for quite some time. But when we talk about the contingent workforces, where there's maybe these like high volume employers that are deploying thousands of workers across lots of different territories, a lot of things change. Minimum wage compliance rules are different in every single jurisdiction. Overtime is different in every single jurisdiction. There's around 11,000 tax jurisdictions. So knowing which local taxes apply to a particular worker is also very complicated. The ability for payroll providers to really jump in and support these contingent workforce companies with the tools that they need to pay workers, like high volumes of workers, faster and compliantly. If you walk down the street and you look at a McDonald's, you're going to see that everybody's hiring and every single company is competing for the same type of labor, that hourly contingent style labor. And when you reflect on what those workers really need to feel motivated, it's a lot of the same things. They want faster onboarding, they want faster payments, and they want a flexible schedule. Those are the three things that we see consistently across every market. And if you're the type of employer that offers those, you increase your likelihood that you could not only get that labor, retain that labor, but also get that labor for a really good price, which is really important in this market.